theme for 2020, which is strength in struggle. What does strength in struggle mean to you?
Strength and struggle, first of all, it removes us from a sense of ourselves as only individuals. It allows us to imagine ourselves as a part of something much larger. It gestures toward the future at the same time as it allows us to imagine ourselves as the product of the imagination, of the collective imagination of those who struggled before us. Oftentimes we think of history in a rather static way. We don't think of the future as history, and we don't think of the present as history. And that strength through struggle evokes, in my mind, the present and future as history as well. And it calls upon us to imagine something better, something that will attend to the needs of all of us.
What had struck me in what you'd said about, just longevity is finding longevity in community, finding that sense of community being what keeps you going.
Yeah. I can't imagine living my life without being involved in radical struggles. But that's because my community has always been made up of those who are involved in labor struggles, feminist struggles, LGBTQ struggles. And I think one can find that sense of longevity precisely by building and being a part of communities of struggle, communities of resistance.
Mm-hmm. And I think what your work urges us to do is not conceptualize it within the narrow framework of the nation, but to think about it within global community, which you pointed to in thinking about how you're encouraged and inspired by what's happening in Brazil right now. Because when we think about that sense of community in that way, it does completely reframe it.
If we try to imagine a future or futures beyond capitalism, mm-hmm. That will entail imagining a world in which the nation state does not constitute the primary mode of organizing human beings mm-hmm. into a community. Mm-hmm. We often forget that the nation state is a capitalist product. And even though we live in nation states and we're governed by them, that does not have to govern our activism. That does mm-hmm. not have to govern our imagination. And that is why it is so important to try to be critical of that which is most normal, mm-hmm. That which constitutes the very framework for our lives, because therein often resides the real barriers to the kind of future mm-hmm. that I think we all want.